that Di's given her time for us. So thank you, Diana, and over to you.
Thank you, Caroline. And thanks everyone for coming. I think that's right. We know that we keep saying unprecedented times, and I'm actually comfortable that we keep saying unprecedented times because we truly are. So let's have a look. I'm going to share with you my PowerPoint now. So at this point, we are going to have some interaction, as you know, from the email from me, which is why we've come on to Zoom. So just to give you a little heads up on that, when we get to that point, there'll be near the beginning a time when we'll go out into what we call little breakout groups. And essentially, I will do them randomly. So you'll find yourself in a group of probably 5 people. And you'll get a little invitation that says, you know, you're invited to the breakout room. You just click on that link. And when you go into that little space, you'll see you're then with 4 other people. You can all talk to each other. I can't hear anything about what you're saying, and neither can any other groups. So it's like your own little private room for that space. And then when it gets towards the end, when there's 1 minute to go, you'll see that I send you a little message that says 1 minute to go. You have no need to come straight away. Just literally keep talking until that 1 minute, and then we'll all be back onto the same page again. Because I think, as Caroline was saying, you know, this has impacted every single one of us in different ways, but also with a lot of overlap. And it's kind of useful sometimes just to be able to talk about that a little bit and go, right, other people are facing the same kind of thing as me. So let me share with you now the PowerPoint. And you'll see sitting there now. How to stay strong and sane, because we need both, right, during COVID-19. Keep your mics off, until you're in the breakout room. Otherwise, I can hear all the background noise, and you probably can from me too. You'll see my details at the bottom there if you want those, and I'll also make sure that I share them with you at the end of today. So a little bit of housekeeping. I'm conscious that, you know, for many of you, you're probably quite familiar with doing Zoom and all sorts of virtual things now. And for others, it's like, oh, what do I need to do? So the only small things that we have are, it's fine at the moment to have your cameras on or off if you want to. Sometimes when you get large numbers, it puts a bit of pressure on the system, but it seems to be working really well today. But good to keep your microphone off until you go. In the breakout rooms, please put your camera and your mic on so that you feel like you're really having a conversation with the people there. Secondly, if you use speaker view, you'll see up on the top right hand corner, you've got what looks like a little jigsaw puzzle. So you can either do gallery view where we all see each other, which is what we were looking at before, or speaker view where you'll see myself and the PowerPoint. So that's probably the easiest way to be able to see the PowerPoint well, and obviously my face out to the side there. Not that I want you to see that, but I know that it kind of adds to the mix. You'll see that there's a little chat box as well. When you've got any questions or any comments, add those into the chat box as well, and we'll stop at several points. Caroline's looking at that for us, which is great, and we'll answer those questions at the end of each section. Okay, that just makes it a little bit more manageable as we go through. So coming up now is a little bit of slide. I know many of you here today I know already, which is great, and some of you I don't. So I thought the easiest way to tell you a little bit about world-class teams is to use this video. But perhaps before I do that, it would be useful as well for you to know we are all going through this massive change right now, and that's included our business as well. So those of you who know me know that pre-COVID-19, we were a face-to-face training company, end of section. Not only is that what we did, but I was a really strong advocate that face-to-face was a lot better than any kind of virtual medium. Along comes COVID-19. It's like, well, if we're going to be face-to-face, we actually won't have a business. So, of course, that meant, and I found myself saying at the beginning, let's pivot. And then I saw a really good video by Simon Sinek where he talked about reinventing. Don't just survive, reinvent. And I held on to that. And that's caused us as a company to say, we're going to add to our suite. We're going to be able to do virtual classrooms and webinars and online coaching in a way where for many it hasn't been done in this way before, and that now gets added in. And interestingly, I'm not going to say that was all great. You know, there was a moment of, eek, this is what we need to do. There's the exhaustion of changing, as I'm sure all of you have experienced as well. And then there's the excitement to say, hey, this is working, we can do this. I don't share that as a big noter. It's much more that sense of, you know what, that's the way that we're all going to come through this best, is to look and say, how do we reinvent? What are the things that we need to do differently? And grabbing those, not pretending it'll all be fun, but grabbing onto those and looking for those opportunities. So when we're back
Individuals don't win tournaments, teams win tournaments in sport, and actually it's the same in business. The businesses with the strongest high-performance teams will be the businesses that genuinely fly. We specialise in helping those businesses to really get their teams flying so that they achieve the success that they truly deserve.
The work that Di and her team did was to change me from a manager to being a leader. The things I took out of that just changed the way, not just the way I managed, but the way I looked at my team and I looked at the business. So for me, I couldn't recommend them more highly.
At World Class Teams, we specialise in helping businesses to build the world class teams that they want so that they have true business success.
I absolutely would recommend World Class Teams. I'm sure that across all areas we would improve with the teaching methods of Diana, with the sharing of knowledge from the other ports that we found that we had. I brought the best out in everyone, and I know that World Class Teams fits very well for Cathay Pacific.
The whole idea is to ensure that we get results, that your business truly starts to fly because you've got a high performance team.
I can guarantee you that you will actually see a dramatic change within your team, a dramatic environment change as well, and I think mostly that you will start to really see some goals actually being kicked and also developing your people as well. So definitely would recommend that to anybody that actually wants to see their staff grow.
We're not about building competent teams, we're about building world-class teams. World-class teams for a world-class business.
World-class teams. World-class teams for a world-class business.
Get ourselves out of that. And I think now is a time when those teams become even more important. You know, I think we're realizing through this crisis how important it is to rely on each other a little bit, to lean on each other a little bit, to help each other a little bit. That's all part of how we're going to manage, how we're going to not only survive but thrive coming out of COVID-19. Because as you can see now on the screen, I've described it as a marathon. You know, let's not kid ourselves. I know that there are some and I would describe myself as an optimist, but to say that we're going to pop out of this on some steep curve, honestly, I think that's in our dreams. We will come out, but it will be a marathon coming out. So let's be ready to run that. I think one of the key differences, though, there's an addition to that marathon because it's actually a marathon of sprints. You know, we keep talking about the new normal. We need to talk about the new normals in the plural because each week there's change, isn't there? And we need to adapt to what that change is. That's the new normal for now. But guess what? In another couple of weeks and another couple of months, there'll be another new normal. So it's really that notion of we need to sprint because this is the way it looks now. And then we'll be doing another sprint. You know that if you're going to do a series of sprints, you need to recover in between. So part of today in that staying strong and sane is making sure that we've got a bit of recovery time as well as the sprinting that we're going to do. So I've described probably the way most of us have felt during this time in boxes. Of course, we need this in the freight industry, don't we? But, you know, there's times when we feel fantastic. Everything is, it's going okay. I'm managing this. I'm managing it at work. I'm managing it personally. It's going really well. There's times when we go, well, I'm strong and I'm holding it together, but my box is looking, you know, a bit damaged. And there's probably times when we all feel like, oh my goodness, the box has collapsed. It's okay that we feel each of those three things. Of course, we'd love it if we could be in that strong box all of the time. I doubt if many people are. You know, we're going to move ourselves, or we're going to find ourselves sometimes down in that crumpled box, and it's how do we get ourselves back? So that leads us to thinking that in that first notion about, I've called them COVID moments, and in that COVID moments there's some pretty ugly stuff that's happened for us. Sorry to all of those animal lovers who think that toad is pretty, but for me it's like pretty ugly. And then there's the good bits. hard as this time has been, there have been some moments in here, some really good things that we've learned about ourselves, some very good things that we've learned about the way we can work from home, some really good things that we've learned about people in our family, some very good things that we've learned about our colleagues, some different ways of working that actually have proven to be really positive for us and our businesses. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint there and come back and see you all, because there's this part now that says, okay, so there's some good bits, and each of us have probably experienced those, and there's been some ugly bits, some bits that have been really tough. So when I put you into your breakout rooms now, you'll be in those small groups, and let's pull it out as let's do 3 groups of 4 and 1 group of 5. I want you to share with the people in the group, remember that it's only you guys who are sharing that, what's something that you found particularly challenging during COVID-19? And what's something that you think, you know what, this has been one of the good things that I've discovered about myself. Just like magic, there you are, all back again. I can see you having a good smile there, Chris. Was it fun?
It was good. The women in our group, we talked too long and poor John didn't get a chance to say anything.
John, I'll remember that. I'll put you in a different group next time. We just need to have the little bell going frequently, right? Oh, good job. Was it useful though? Thumbs up if you're going, yep, was it interesting to talk about that together? Yeah, because often we realize 2 things. A, oh my gosh, you know, all of us are facing difficulties in this period, but also that sometimes those things that we don't even think about are really impacting other people. And I think it's so important that we talk about the impact as if there is the impact. All we can say, and it's important that we do, is everyone is impacted dramatically, but it's different for different people, isn't it? You know, I know within the industry, even when I talk to some of our clients in freight and logistics, you know, we can see within a company, there's some people who are flat out still working, and then there's other people going, well, there's not much for me to do right now. That's also hard for people to manage. It's not even as if it's industry wide or company wide. Within our companies, we've got people with quite different workloads to what they've had in the past. Similarly, if you add on to that then the fact that, gosh, you know, some of us, there's 2 people in a family where they're both okay in their jobs, they're secure in their jobs, they might be struggling with how to manage COVID, but from a financial perspective, they're okay. We're sitting in a stable position. And then there's others where there's one of each. And there's some where there's both people who are on JobKeeper or have lost their jobs altogether. And you can only begin to imagine the different pressures that those different groups of people are feeling in terms of all of the difficulties that they're facing right now. And it's not like it's suddenly going to end. You know, it's going to be a long series of sprints in the marathon. It's a long way coming out of that. Until 2 weeks ago, you know, there were children at home as well. And I'm also trying to look after our children and their schooling. So all of this range of things, and I'm worried about my parents being elderly and they're in, you know, there's that whole range of things that's happening. So I think now is a time, and some of you, I know we're at the leadership webinar that we did the other day too, that whole sense of leaders and all of us need more empathy than we've ever needed before, because everyone is sitting in a different place. And of course, we still need to move forward. We still need to help people to stay productive and to stay motivated. It starts though with the recognition that we are all trying to figure out how to stay strong and sane during this crazy time, and looking after ourselves, but looking after each other, just as you've no doubt shared in that space, is really important in that. So I'm going to go back and share the PowerPoint with you now, because what we have designed up for you is a little blueprint that I'm hoping is really going to help you with 4 quadrants that will help us to stay sane and stay strong throughout this marathon of sprints that we've got to do. And I'll run through that blueprint with you today. It comes in a soft copy as well, and you can obviously print that out. So we'll make sure that you get details at the end so that you can, if you would like that you can just send through to me, and I'll send that blueprint through to you as well, to be able to use yourselves and obviously to share with your teams as well. I have this rule about copyright. It's called copyright, as many copies as you like, because if it's useful, we should be sharing that with other people, not keeping it all to ourselves like it's our own. So let me share with you the PowerPoint now, and we'll go back and have a look at how that blueprint shapes up into the 4 quadrants. So there's that ugly little frog that some of you, toad that some of you might like, but I don't. Here's our blueprint. So you can see 4 quadrants. And we need to make sure that there are specific questions for each of those. And we'll look at those questions as we go through. And then those questions will be on the blueprint, on the template that I send through to you if you'd like that as well. So it's that notion of working from home effectively, also working in the office or on site effectively, and realizing that for many of us, there's been a combination already. A lot of people have been working almost exclusively from home. And now we're starting to say, when do we want to be in the office and when do we want to stay working from home? I think that whole notion of flexible work is taken on, and in many ways it's been great. We've been talking about it for at least 10 or 15 years about having flexible workspaces, and we jolly well haven't done it very well. And suddenly now COVID has forced us to do that. And I think that's been in many ways a positive awakening for many business to say, oh, you know what, this actually works. You can trust your people to be working from home. And truthfully, of course you can. If you measure output rather than how many hours your bottom's on a seat, then totally you can have people working, and technology enables us to work from different environments now and still achieve a whole lot. So that'll be the first two that we look at. And then the second two at the bottom there, that best me 9 out of 10. And you'll see more on the questions as we go through on that. You know, sometimes we have these such high expectations of ourselves that we think we have to be completely amazing, completely that great box every moment of every day. And the reality is we just are not, and we can't expect ourselves to be that way in a crisis. So let's go 90%. That's a high distinction. Right? How do we get to be our best me? How do we be that great box most of the time, but realize that it's actually okay sometimes to look like that crumpled one, the third box as well. And this whole notion of being kind, I think I've really seen this in the last few weeks of people genuinely caring for people often who they don't know. You know, we're out on our walks, for example, and people are genuinely talking to each other, not just doing their good morning as we go past. There's a little bit of conversation. It's amazing. I walk each morning and this day I walked past and here's this little table outside and bunches of flowers on the table that said, you know, flowers make people's days happier. Please take a little bunch if you'd like to. I think, how cool is that? That someone, just because they decided to be kind, said, let me be kind and generous. And honestly, that was part of the reason that Caroline and a couple of you who are here today know that you were part of that conversation too, that said, hey, let's just do something for members right now. Let's just be kind. I think there's no doubt that our society is going to be different when we come out of COVID. So our choice is it going to be different worse, or is it going to be different better? You know, and it'll be different better because we choose to do things that, including kindness, I think are in that space. So let's look at each of these in turn. That first quadrant, when you're working from home, what are some of the things that are really important? Each time I've tried to keep it snappy so that you can do this really well. So it's simple rather than simplistic. So in quadrant 1, when you work from home, I think there are 2 key things that are really important. You need a different routine working from home to the one that you need working in the office. I know that sounds obvious, but I can promise you that when we were doing webinars on working from home, there were lots of people saying, oh, so should you keep the same routine that you have at work, Di? I'm going, well, if you live completely alone, and you can manage to keep that same routine, happy days. But if you live with other people, there's going to be some juggling going on here. So create a new routine. Routine number 1, because we're now getting to the space where we go, many of us will have this combination of working from home and working in the office or in our workspace. So here's routine number 1, working from home. And finish your workday. You know, lots of people are saying to me now, one of the things I'm really struggling with, Di, is that there's this blurring between my professional life, my working life, and my personal life. I just stay there. I just keep on working. And you know what? If we only did this for a couple of weeks, it wouldn't be a big deal. It's the fact that we're going to do it long term that we need to be really careful to make a boundary between our working at home and our living at home, our personal life at home. So a series of questions under each of those. Firstly, where will I work? You know, it doesn't matter how big your place is. Actually a really, really important and a really great idea to have a workspace that is a workspace. Okay. So that is where you work. You don't work when you're not in that space. And if you are lucky enough, I'm sitting in a situation now where our girls are growing up. So I am grateful that we sit in a big house where my husband and I can work from home and we're not in the same room. That makes Zoom and all sorts of conversations easier to have. Equally, I've got clients that they have a chair at the breakfast bar, that's their work chair, and when they're not at work, they never sit on that same chair. So we don't need a huge space to do this, but it's really good to have a designated working space. And then what time will I start? It's tempting, and we probably all did this at the beginning. Oh, I can sleep in for a little bit longer because I don't have that hour that I need to travel to work. That was great for that time. When we've got a long term, it's really good to say, in my routine, I start at this time, because the more we let that seep away, the easier it is to get distracted by all of those things at home. And before you know it, we realize we've become really ineffective and really inefficient. So what time will I start? What are my 2 to 3 Pomodoro tasks? Some of you are probably familiar with the term Pomodoro. This is that notion of 30 to 60 minutes that you are going to spend absolutely dedicated to one of your really important tasks. So if you're doing a project, it might be one step of the project. You need to start and finish that task inside that Pomodoro time. Whether it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes will depend on the type of role you have. If you're lucky enough to be able to do an hour that's not interrupted, go for the 1 hour Pomodoro. Otherwise, go for that 30 minutes or somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. It's great to have 2 or 3 of those every day. Can't get my words out. Spread those throughout the day as well, so that those are the times when you stay completely focused on those most important tasks. Massively, this is what helps us stay sane, because we go, great, I've done this, this, and this. Those were my 3 key tasks I feel like I've achieved. So you have those days otherwise where you don't even stop, and you get to the end and you go, oh, I got nothing done. And that never means we got nothing done. It usually means I did a whole lot of things on other people's lists rather than things on my list. So the 2 to 3 Pomodoros, if you think about it, that's a maximum. If you've got 3 1 hours, it's a maximum of 3 hours out of your day. You've still got 5 or 6 hours probably where you're working. Yeah, and if you use half hours, obviously you've got even more time. So it's what are they and when are they? So Pomodoros get put into specific time brackets. So I might say between 10 and 11, between 3 and 4, between 5 and 6. Okay. It's up to you as to when they should be, and that will obviously depend on your team and other jobs that you have. It will also depend on, if you can, working to your own body clock. Try to make sure that you're doing at least one of those Pomodoros when you're in your peak thinking, so that you can do something creative, something that's really meaty during one of those Pomodoros. Straight away, that means you've now got a structure, a really good structure for working really effectively and efficiently from home. Put those Pomodoros into your calendar. Okay? Then everyone sees this is an appointment that you have, this is a meeting that you have in that space. Secondly, finish your workday. So again, decide what time am I going to finish, because otherwise we get that creep, which, as we say, will happen some days, and it's fine for it to happen some days. When that becomes the norm though, that's a problem. So what time will I finish? And what are my end of workday rituals? That might sound really weird, but if we definitely make sure that, okay, this is how I pack up. This is what I do to transition. So there's a number of people where they'll pack up their things. You could leave it out, but they'll pack up their things. And then as they walk through that door, let's say into a family room or into the kitchen, it's called, okay, now I'm finished work. Now I'm in personal time, in personal mode. I've got people who will change some of their clothes and say, okay, so now I'm in personal mode. I'm a believer, and you will have noticed on the webinars, I wear my professional clothes during the day. Because I know that I know that's what people expect when they see me here, but massively it makes a difference. So when I finish at the end of the day, I'll go and get my old track pants on and put the sweatshirt on as well. So it's that notion of making sure there's a definite start, a definite structure, and a definite finish. In a similar way, when you're working in the office, again, 2 things. The first thing I want us to really think about now, because we have the opportunity to make this better than it's ever been before. So when you are going into the office or into your usual workplace, think firstly about what is the advantage? Why am I going into the office? I think we're going to see much more offices becoming collaborative spaces rather than just workspaces. If I'm going to be collaborating, if we're brainstorming, if we're having a meeting where we want to make good decisions together or planning, it makes really good sense for us to be eyeballing each other. I think we all know that it can be done on Zoom, but there's a much better vibrancy when we're physically around the table together. If I'm just going in there because, oh, it's Monday, yeah, I think we want to rethink that. You know, why are we going in? Let's ask ourselves that question. And secondly, that means that we'll create a routine, a second routine, a different routine for when you're working in the office to the one that you have when you're working at home. So what is that? And say, not is there, notice it's what is. We need to answer that question. What is the office advantage I'm using? I'm going to do some coaching with Caroline. I'm going to collaborate with my team on some new ideas for this new client. There should be a real reason for going in there, not it's Monday. We have our team meetings. Great. We're all in the office for those team meetings. Secondly, how will I contribute to better outcomes in the company culture? When I go into the office today, how am I going to help? Because one of the things we're noticing is, of course, it's more difficult to have that vibrant company culture that we had. That's much easier to generate when we're all in this physically in the same space to what it is when we're working from home. So how am I going to add to that culture? And I know that we've done, in many places, we've done the virtual drinks and even virtual breakfasts and all sorts of things. But actually, one of the things that could be great to keep that company culture going is if we're in the office for our team meeting, maybe we want to make sure that we have lunch together as well. We want to add to the culture as well as ensuring that we're there for a genuine purpose, not just creatures of habit. Of course, particularly for a number of people in Sydney, you know, when we look at COVID-19, this is really a disease of big cities and lots of public transport. Look at the cities that have really been impacted. That's where they are. And even in New South Wales, this is a Sydney disease. Many of us probably know people who live in rural New South Wales. They don't know anyone who's got COVID-19. There's no one tested. It's no big deal for them. In fact, there's an excitement that people can maybe travel over this weekend and go out and spend some tourism dollars and really help boost the economies there. But there's equally a number of people in those small towns saying, stay out of here. We don't want those city people coming here with their COVID-19. So there's that notion of how will we now get to work if we've used trains, if we've been on public transport. I don't know about you, but when I've worked in the city, if I'm working in the city, I have always gone on the train. Second thoughts about that now. So how will I what time will I start? If I'm going to be on public transport, I don't want to be going at peak hour. And there's probably no need. Again, as we say, we've discovered that you do not have to be a bottom on a seat in the office on standard hours to really achieve. So what time will I start in there? What's going to be my new routine or rhythm for the office? So there's a routine there, and there's the routine that we've got when we're at home. What are my 1 to 2 Pomodoro tasks? Notice that I've made it fewer when you're working from the office, because working in the office, in the main, you're going to be going in there because there's going to be collaboration. You're going to utilize that time to speak with people face to face. So that's obviously going to take a significant portion of time. So cut down the number of Pomodoros that you've got in there as well. And again, what time will you do those? So that we've got a really strong and positive routine for what happens in the office. We've got a really strong and positive routine for what happens when we're working from home. And I know many of you are managers and team leaders as well. There's this whole discussion that you're going to have with your teams as well about where and when and how we're going to share our time and share our knowledge, if you like, and share the way that we work so that it gives us the best possible, a forward-thinking outcome rather than going back, pretending that we can go back to the old ways. We're crazy if we think that's going to happen. We're also crazy if we go back. Of course, there's some things that we want, but it just becomes that question of why do we want this? How can this add to us getting better outcomes now and having a better culture? When we can articulate that well, it's a really good reason to be in the office. When we can't, it's like, all right, we might be better off the flexibility that we have in working from home. So just tailoring between the two. Now, I'm sure that's raised probably some questions for you. So I'm going to stop sharing for now and come back to Caroline. Have we got any little questions or comments in our chat box at the moment? Nothing.
Nothing.
You guys, are we in the afternoon? Are we awake? Just checking. Actually, if you've got a question, you can, because we can all see each other,
Yeah.
pop your mic on if you have, but otherwise I'll keep going. We good?
Yep. No.
Excellent. All righty. Save them up. Ask me some things. Otherwise I'll think, hey, what's happening here, you guys? So there are our first two quadrants. If you remember, our second layer of quadrants in 3 and 4 is that notion of, okay, this is very much about us as people now. Being a little bit kind to ourselves, you know, be a 9 out of 10. We don't have to be a 10 out of 10. We don't need to always have it together. We don't need to always be feeling on top of our game, because we know that if we're going to be strong, we've actually got to have a little bit of rest and recovery. Train the voice in your head. So I'm going to give you a couple of phrases that I think are really helpful to keep us strong and to keep us sane coming out of here. They're questions that we know, but we sometimes don't ask them. And then know what lifts you up and do what lifts you up. You know, each of us has times where we're that crumpled box. When you're the crumpled box, what do you do that transforms you back to that really strong box out on the left-hand end? Know what those things are and use them really well. Because as we said, we've got a marathon of sprints coming up here. So the 9 out of 10 is just a reminder, and it's an important reminder that in order to stay strong, we need to have some rest and recovery. You know, it's a bit like we're supposed to sleep those 8 hours, because that gives our body a chance to rest and recover. In the same way as people, probably most of us have been running like crazy for the last 10 weeks to try to keep everything together in our work and our families, caring for our extended family as well. So it's that part about, okay, we've got a long weekend coming up. Make sure there's some rest and recovery. Make sure that there's some you time in that space, and be in that notion, especially if you know you're a perfectionist. Make sure that there's time to say, hey, excellence is great. 9 out of 10 is great. We don't need to be 10 out of 10 all of the time. Training the voice in our head. There are 2 questions that I'm going to pose, and I want you to really practice these, because, you know, so often you hear people say, oh yeah, don't think that would be possible. Oh, can we do that? Can we do that has a really easy answer called, oh, I don't really think we can. How can we do that? Says, keep looking, there will be a way. Yes, and how can I? If the voice in your head is going, yes, the minute we hear that yes word, there's already a positive psychology going inside our brain. We start opening, looking for ways to do things. So yes, and how can I? Doesn't mean the answer will always come easy, but go to that basis. Yes, and how can I do that better? Yes, and how can I look after that client? Yes, and how can I do that with my team? Yes, and how could we do that in another way? I know we did it this way pre-COVID. We can't do it that way. And yeah, how can we do it? And what options can we create? 2 really important words in here, both the options, what options, and create. Let's not kid ourselves. These things will not fall down to us into our laps from the sky. We need to create them. What options can I, and I've specifically put in there, what options can I create? What options can we create? Because I think it was Richard Branson who said, the best way to get a great idea is to have lots of ideas. And the best way to get lots of ideas is to get lots of heads, lots of people doing them. So I think one of the key reasons for that working back in the office is that collaborative space, as we said. People preparing beforehand. On Tuesday, when we have our meeting, come in with 2 ideas on how we can reconnect with our customers who we haven't had a connection with for the last 8 weeks. What options can we create here? How can we show that we care? How can we do things differently? How can we give better service than we did before? Great questions to have in every aspect. We need to train ourselves in them, because if you think about what we tend to do, we tend to ask closed questions. Can we? Do we? Have we? They're not helpful here. It's easy for us to defer to the no, no, no when we say that. Yes, and how can we? What options can I create? They'll give us a much more forward and upward focus. And I think we need that like never before. That's going to be great for you personally. Imagine with your team as well, when that's the language that they hear coming out of your mouth. Because if it's in your head, it'll come out of your mouth. Equally, if what's in your head is can, what comes out of your mouth will be can. Know and do what lifts you up. I guess one of the things that we've really seen during this time, particularly during lockdown, is, gosh, what are the things that we really missed that we didn't mean to take for granted, but we realize we actually have? You know, what are the things that lift you? Is it particular music? Is it exercise? Is it catching up with friends? What are those things? Know what they are and do them really regularly, because that keeps us in that we don't want to, as much as possible, we don't want to slip down and then come back up again. We want as much as possible to take a small dip and come back up. And it kind of links very strongly to what Caroline was talking about at the start of today with the client who's now suffering from anxiety as well. We know that this whole notion of having these things that we know lifts us up is not only good for our body in the case of exercise, but it's good for our soul as well. You know, that whole notion of music and friends, and think what happened when so many in the arts are really suffering right now. And then there were those wonderful montages where there was music, where there was a symphony playing, or there was a song being sung, and woof, it lifts everyone's spirit. So we need to not forget those things. Equally, you know, the virtual drinks that we all started to have with friends because we couldn't catch up. And I don't know about you guys, but we found it fascinating that we started doing virtual drinks with people, friends overseas, where we'd been saying, oh, when we catch up with them, it'll be so great. It's like, why were we waiting for that? We could just go on Zoom. And in some it's hilarious because we get the time. So one of us is on coffee and the other's on wine. You know, there's part of the fun of this. So it's doing those things and continuing to do those things that we know lift us in this space, not waiting for things to happen, making sure that we take control and do them ourselves. So 3 things in that quadrant 3. And I think probably 1 and 3 are relatively easy. 2 is conceptually easy, but we really need to practice. We need to practice to get that voice in our head right. And that last quadrant, 2 things again: be kind and be generous to other people. One of the things that we know, there's a wonderful saying that a American psychologist, John Livingston, said, and he said, in order to be happy in life, we need 3 things. We need someone to love, something to do, and something to look forward to. Part of that be kind, be generous is something to do that makes a difference to somebody else. And that the woman who put the flowers out on our street, you know, what a wonderful, generous little activity to have done. Be kind and be generous to yourself as well. We need to look, if our own little tanks get empty, then we've really struggled to be kind and generous to other people. So we need to do this both to ourselves and also to others. In fact, interestingly, today I was speaking to a client about this, be kind and generous to yourself. And she said, oh, maybe I should have my own personal Pomodoros as well. And I said, that is a beautiful idea. So I'm going to share it with you guys. Where is that half hour? That is you time, where you just rekindle, where you fill up that tank again, being a little bit kind and a little bit generous to yourself. So what might they be? I think, you know, we can have these great ideas. You know, my belief is unless we do it, makes no difference. An idea by itself is not great. So once a week, do something nice for someone else. The minute you have this, like, have I done that this week? No, I haven't. So get in there and do it. And it may be someone that you know, might be someone that you don't know. There's an elderly lady that I often see when I'm walking, and she's amazing. She's in her 80s and she walks so upright with her little dog every day. She was really struggling though during lockdown because she couldn't of course see any of her family. And we most often would just walk past each other and say good morning and maybe have a 1-minute chat as we walked along. And this day I thought, I'm just going to walk with her for a little while. And she said to me, you walk much faster than me. I said, that's not the point. It's nice just to walk and have a talk as we go. That woman was beside herself with how kind that was. You know, it didn't take anything. It said, just walk with someone for a little while instead of doing it yourself. And always when we're kind to other people, guess what? We actually feel there's kind of a nice feeling inside as well. We are social beings. It's good to be doing something for someone else. I absolutely think we know society will be different. For goodness sakes, let's help it to make it different better, not different scary or different worse. You know? And I don't know about you, but I've heard many people say, gee, I hope this continues, you know, this caring for other people. I hope this continues after COVID. It's like this, as if something else somehow makes it happen. It will continue if each of us continues to do it, right? It's not happening to us, it's us doing it. So be in that space where we look after. I think we're so conscious that there are so many people who live alone. You know, they don't have perhaps as many social connections as many of us are lucky enough to have. So that generosity, that sense that other people really care about them is really important. And it's small, something every week. 30 minutes a day. Start off with 30 minutes a week. Get yourself to 30 minutes a day. A little bit of luxury for you, because that's the part that keeps our tank full, that lets us be our best us and lets us be our best us for everyone else as well. And when you sit down, you know what some of those things are. What are the things that you really love to do that always get pushed to the side? You know, is it that book that you think, oh, I'll read that on the plane? If you're like me, I've got a stack of books that I'm going to read on the plane. Sadly, there's not even too many planes to be reading them on right now, but it's that notion of, so just sit down and read the book anyway. Or is it the bubble bath? Or is it the exercise or the Pilates or a friend that you want to catch up with? You know, what's that little bit of luxury that we just have for ourselves that says be kind, because in doing so, that's what enables us to be strong in all of those quadrants. And then you heard me say they're like the now what, because in this now what, I think I'll come back and we'll have a look at those final questions if you've got them as well. But the now what is, you know, make sure you do this. If you go, this makes sense to me today, then build your blueprint so that you do stay strong and safe and sane as we go through this whole series of waves as we come out of COVID. Text or email me if you want the templates, and I'll show you those. They're sitting there good to go, and there is a Word document, so you can just continue to fill those in and share them with your team if you'd like that. Let me know if you would. Thirdly, have something to really look forward to. So we've got in our template, we've got the space of in the here and now, how do we do our best work? How do we look after ourselves? But I'm a real believer in that John Livingston, you know, have something to look forward to. What's something that you would really like to do again? So in my picture, you can see the bottom left-hand picture there is my beautiful Danish sister and husband and my gorgeous godson, where I was supposed to be right now. Darn. But you know what? Thank goodness we've been there multiple times and it will happen again. I'm looking forward to that though. That's part of why you keep yourself vibrant. It's like, oh yes. And imagine when we're together again, how good that's going to be. So it's that notion of really having something to look forward to so that we celebrate life and celebrate with those people who mean the most to us. And then a little reminder to all of us who have been used to that professional development series that we do with Caroline and FTA, where we usually have our 3 sessions. It'll be back. You know, don't worry, it'll be back. And those drinks will be back too. And for as long as we need to and you want to, we'll continue to do, you know, webinars like this as well, so that we can keep ourselves connected and keep ourselves learning things and being vibrant. There'll be that time when we're back having a glass of wine afterwards and sharing time together too. So on that happy note, I'm going to get out of here so that I can see all of your faces again. And some of your faces, so you can put your faces back on now so that I can see you all, please. Do we have questions? And just stick on your mics. There's 12 of us here, so you can just put on your mic if you've got a question. And if you don't, I'll be worried that you were sleeping while we were just those slides.
I'm awake.
Oh, good. Phew.
Yeah, I don't have a question, Di, but I just think that was so well done. You've hit the nail on the head as per usual, just with everything. Like I was just telling the breakout group how I still haven't found a routine. And it's embarrassing to say that now because it's been 2 months and I'm sitting here in my UGG boots and I'm just not ready for work. But it's good I've written down everything that you've said. So I'm going to start it now because I think it's never too late, really. We've probably got another 2 months doing this. So
absolutely,
I'll start now.
Annie, and thank you. It's always great. But you're right. I think, you know, and this is part of that kindness, right? If you think, I don't know about you guys, but I remember when we first were going into lockdown, on that Thursday afternoon, I'd been at this I wasn't leading it, but I was part of this big event. I'm thinking, the most I remember thinking was, right, I'm not going to shake anyone's hand when we go in there. But, you know, we sat around the table, we chatted, there was a bit of social distancing. I'd be a liar if I said we were all 1.5 meters away. We weren't. You know, the next day I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if that had been Friday instead of Thursday, it would have been cancelled. by the Saturday, and I remember as clearly because I was supposed to be going to New Zealand to visit my parents. It was like Saturday, Jacinda said, oh, if you're coming to New Zealand, you have to go into quarantine or isolation for 14 days. I think I'm going for a weekend and I've got to do 14 days before I can see mum and dad. By Sunday, Scott Morrison said, yeah, and you've got to do 14 days when you come back as well. I'm thinking, far out. So I've got a month to see mum and dad for 2 days. By Monday, there were no flights. It's like, forget it. They're in lockdown, you know? And you think, oh my goodness, that was all in the space of 4 days. Now, I remember those because that was so pertinent to me. But the reality is that kind of thing continued for weeks, didn't it? Where we'd keep going, oh, remember we were doing that 2 days ago? God, imagine we wouldn't do that now. Or honestly, I tell you, when I was like, what the heck are we going to do as a business? There was that whole thing. So I think, again, you know, to say, oh, I should have had a routine 8 weeks ago. Well, it kept changing. And I think part of us has needed to get used to, oh, it's going to keep changing. So how do I build little snippets of that routine that will help me to manage this really well? And then I'll gradually build on that. You know, I can start with one Pomodoro. I can start with starting that day at the same time.
Hi, Jen. It's Alvaro. How are you?
That's all good.
Good. Were you trying to call me?
Not you.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'll mute him because he'll be embarrassed if we do that.
Yeah.
It's that part of saying be kind to ourselves, but it's kind of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday. When's the next best time? Today. Like, as long as we get started. And I think it's that part of, we probably all realize, oh, gee, I wish I had. Well, you know what? That's a shame, but it's gone. But I'm still going to. We can absolutely, I'm going to start today, you know? That's great.
Oh, no, it was just lovely, Diana. Thank you. I know this is definitely going to help our team because we have a lot of people working from home. And even just to suggest to them your routine, that they may very well have that, but it means so much, you know, and also to stop, because a lot don't, and as you say, then their night goes into 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, I found it very, very helpful.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. And share with the team.
Oh, I will email you with the for the templates. But yeah, thank you again. It was lovely to see you. Good luck and goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Thank you. That was great.
Thanks, Chris. Lovely to see you all. So flick me the text or the email if you want the templates. And lovely to see you again, Chris.
It's great to see you. I'll give you a call, Di. It's been a long time.
It's been, I can promise you, I was conscious when I was doing that. My husband was out the back and I thought, I know what he's going to say. What are you doing on that rejuvenate over the weekend? You know, 3 days. I think we all have been going like crazy doing various things. And one of the things that's been great is not having all that traveling time. But one of the things that's not been so great about it's not that it hasn't been great, but it means you can, instead of going out and doing workshops and you only can do one in a day, I can do a workshop, like this is my 3rd one today. You know, you can do multiple things, and that's great, but you have to be careful to say, well, you need to build the break in between, because usually you would have been driving and, you know, listening to the news or making a couple of phone calls. Now we literally can go from one thing to another, and we have to say, stop. You need a little break in between.
A little tip that I'll add in is that because we're sitting down really at our desks at home for hours and hours and hours, like you can literally just be glued to there because you've not got any other distractions or somebody coming in to, you know, with a coffee, having a bit of a chat, you know, the socialness that you get in an office environment. That I've made a conscious effort, like every hour, to at least get up and stand and walk, because I have felt that my back has been and my hip has been a little bit sore. And so then Paul and I decided that during the day, both of us are going to take a half an hour out, and we put the treadmill in the lounge room and we go downstairs and we take a break and we both take a turn. Like I do mine in the afternoon. Paul does his about 2 o'clock. Paul does his about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and does a half an hour of treadmill, just to not just be sedentary and stuck at the desk. It's really, and also being very careful of posture and the work environment, that the ergonomics of what you're doing at home.
Yeah, that's important.
I have felt that little things are getting a bit stiffer than normal, and you know that's not good. So that's our little personal Pomodoro, looking after each other.
Good, Caroline.
Brilliant.
Body as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a really good example. And if when you're talking, it's like, there's that little snippet of habit, that little snippet of routine that goes, right. And I bet you in a little while, Caroline, you'll just do that automatically. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And it will continue. And again, there's one of those flip side positives of this damn COVID, right? It's like, oh, okay, we've built this new routine where we make sure we're on the treadmill for half an hour every day.
It was also JP, who's on this webinar as well. He was sort of putting us to shame because he's been doing like marathon bike riding. and we go, oh no, we're going to have to try and keep up with him.
I'm not going to ask you to show me that you've got the pants on, John. It's okay.
The bike's waiting downstairs. But it is. It's as Caroline just said. You're sitting down all day, and I just found very early on when I work from home all the time, so. I thought, oh, that's not going to be a hassle. But when you don't have the option to get up and go somewhere, I think like Christine was saying, then it became, at the very beginning, it became a bit overpowering because you felt really locked in your house.
Yes.
So, and I made a conscious effort to sort of get the bike out and, just start with, a short ride, and then each day it's got longer and longer and longer. But at the end of the day, it refreshes you, and if you want, you can come back and still do some more work, or you finish off and you go to sort of doing your own social things. Yeah. But it helps you just regenerate, and it helps you freshens your brain up. And I've come back after it sometimes and done a couple of emails because I thought, oh well, I'll just finish those off or something. Yeah. Or other times you come back and you have your dinner or whatever. But yeah, you need to do something to get out and as Caroline said, get the sedentary part of the body going.
It's very dangerous just sitting for hours and hours, and I really, we really all have to make a conscious effort to get up and move.
Absolutely. For our brains too, right? Like there's so much evidence out there that says your brain functions better when you're doing exercise too. There's more blood flow everywhere. That includes to our brains, of course. So it's that part about absolutely having that and building that into our days, building up those new routines as well. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, thank you guys. It's been fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, I agree.
So nice to see you all. It really is. It's like, oh my God, I've missed it.
I can't believe you're stuck in Melbourne.
I've been stuck in Melbourne. I've got stories to tell you. Anyway, it's been an adventure. Sorry.
And isn't that the space? I think it is. And it's highlighted that notion, hasn't it, that we are social beings and that it is good to catch up with people. It is good to have that scene where we talk. I think many companies are seeing now, well, it's great to have our meetings to discuss. And a lot of people have said, oh, you know what, our meetings actually much better now, Di. We're much more effective and efficient when we're online because people are well prepared and we get on with it. So there's the positive. And they go, but we're missing all of that banter and that little social connection. When we walk out of the meeting and we just chat with that person that we walk out with and maybe get a coffee together, or we walk to the car park and see someone. So lots of companies have got their morning coffee on a Monday or social drinks on a Friday. And those little things are really good ways of saying, right now, we need to schedule the spontaneity, as it were, schedule in those social drinks, make sure that we have that space as well, because there's that part, and people can choose to be part of it or not. But what many companies have seen is people that they thought, oh, they probably wouldn't want to join, those people are joining,
Yeah.
We have things taken away from us. We realize how much we miss them,
Yeah.
for granted, even though we don't like to think that we have. And long may we be more appreciative of those things that we now realize are a bit precious in life,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So thank you all.
Thank you.
Send me a notification
Thanks,
and enjoy the rest of the night. Stay safe and enjoy some time for yourselves over this long weekend, hey?
Yes.
You
Thank
too. Take care.
No worries.
Take care, everyone.
All the best.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Bye.
Di.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.